Alright guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to do a quick, this isn't really a review, just more so an overview of a pretty cool little weapon that I've been playing with for quite some time now. I would like to say that this is a first shots, first impressions video, but as you can see clearly from how dinged up, beat up, used this thing is, that is not the case. I would also like to be able to say that I have had zero issues, this thing's been running great, yada yada yada, all of that, but that would also be just disingenuous and false. This particular platform has had quite a few issues, quite a few hiccups, and quite a few roadblocks that I've had to work through, and being as I am not super well versed on the AP5 platform or its clones, I have kind of had to stumble through some stuff and figure out things on my own. And I'm actually happy to say that I think I have got this particular manufacturer's build figured out. So what I've got here is a Century Arms AP5-P. So this is an MP5K clone. So this is going to be, I believe these guys are manufactured on HK tooling. Some of the parts they use are HK. But there was quite a few hiccups out the gate. So I want to go ahead and start with what it is I had to do in order to make this platform 100% reliable. And that is several of the parts that I have to change out. Now you might say, oh, well, why don't you just get an HK MP5K out the gate? And if you have the money to do that, by all means, be my guest. But a lot of people don't, and even with every single one of the upgrades, including the different furniture that I've got here, the different handguard, the light, the optic, and the parts that I've had to add to make this thing reliable, this entire setup still costs less than a bone stock HK MP5K. So the things that I had to change right out the gate is I ended up doing a HK ejector lever and ejector spring. This is the Gen 3 ejector lever, ejector spring. One of the problems that I was having out the gate with this was some pretty serious failure to eject, and it was every magazine I would have 2 or 3 of them. And one of the things that delving into research that I found out is that Century Arms has had a batch of poorly heat treated or out of spec ejector lever. So an ejector lever is that little thing that pops up. It's part of the integrated part of the trigger guard, or trigger group rather. Changing that out, immediately all of my failure to eject went away. After that, I was having failure to feed issues. Now right out the gate, I ended up replacing the stock extractor piece that comes with this with an 80-degree locking piece, and that's just based off of the early, like, real preliminary stuff that I had looked into it, and they were saying, hey, change it out with an 80-degree because these come with, it's like a 115 or a 120, something ridiculous locking piece, and if you plan on shooting one of these suppressed with that locking piece, especially with 147s or heavy bullets like that, you are going to damage your receiver. You're going to end up getting roller dents. It's going to ruin your receiver, ruin your gun. So you want to change that out the gate, most definitely. I don't know why Century Arms puts that one in there, because I know a lot of people are going to be running these things suppressed, but hey, you know, it's neither here nor there. So change out with an 80-degree locking piece. I was having failure to feeds pretty regularly out of this, especially when running it unsuppressed with 115 grain bullets. I was having some pretty serious issues. Suppressed 115s, it would do kind of okay. 124s and 147s, it would do fine with. But the 115s, suppressed and unsuppressed, I would still be having issues, but more so unsuppressed. Reason being is the way a roller delay gun works, it's going to be relying on the back pressure from the round firing to actually unlock the rollers, cycle the action, get everything nice and close. And what was happening was the 115s, they're leaving the barrel so quickly, you're not getting enough gas tapping the system in order to reliably run the system, so I was getting short strokes where it wasn't completely feeding the round into the chamber, and I was having issues with that. And when you add a suppressor, it adds a little bit more back pressure, so it helps the process a little bit, but even with 115s, I was still having problems. Unsuppressed 115s would not run at all. 124s would run pretty well. I would have a malfunction every once in a while. 147s would run 100% unsuppressed. So what it ended up doing to remedy that problem was going up from an 80-degree to a 90-degree locking piece, and at this point I've got about 800 rounds through this with the 90-degree locking piece and have not had a single issue. Now the locking piece that I went with was an RCM locking piece. What I saw was that they were really good quality, something you can go on. They were a lot cheaper than what you can get an HK locking piece for. The locking piece in this for the RCM is actually less than the HK ejector lever. I don't know why they're really proud of their stuff, but it is what it is. So what else is it that I've got into this setup? So other than that, the bare bones of the MP5 itself are bone stock. I've got the same lower receiver. I've got the same safety, which I do recommend changing out the safety for the extended lever one for Magpul. It is kind of hard to reach that one there, but that's something that I've been able to work through. Just as I'm going up, I'll actuate the safety and then go to town with it like that. So moving front to back, I have a Midwest Industries M-Block rail on here. I wanted to be able to run this thing under nods, and one of the big things that you have to pay attention with MP5s is the amount of real estate that you don't have. You are very limited on what you can mount. In order to be able to have night vision and white light capabilities, I ended up going with the Streamlight VIR2. So it's got a white light. While it is anemic, it's an MP5. It's not designed to shoot much more past 50 yards. I don't plan on ever engaging past that with this. So it gets the job done, but it's also giving me the ability to just flip it over to the IR setting, and I can run IR. And then whenever I'm actually running this, I can either flip it on to constant on mode, so I can run the white light constant if I want, or I can reach over the top and just actuate it like that while I'm just barely having to brake or adjust my grip. And then IR, normally I'm going to rotate the gun over anyway, so I've got the laser basically right on top of the board, and I'll fire it like that as well. So it has worked out really well. I've got quite a few rounds to this thing under night vision. It's worked really well. Optic, I ended up going with a Absolute Co-Witness XPS3, not the EXPS3. The XPS3 sits a little bit lower, and it puts this thing at the perfect height to where I'm not having to get a weird chin weld in order to get behind the optic. So XPS3 I'd be about up here. Gets you a little bit lower, but it is high enough to where I can easily, without any issues, connecting with my rear sight, passive aim with night vision as well. I also changed out the stock claw mount that comes with it for Midwest Industries. Midwest Industries I feel was just a little bit better quality, especially with the mounting hardware that it came with. So I've got that there. And then for the stock and AC Unity stock, these stocks are rather inexpensive, but I do recommend getting something a little bit better. I probably will in the future, but for now this stays here, and I've gotten it to work. But the way I have it work is I actually have to shim around the edge of it with a couple pieces of duct tape in order to get it to work. So I know, kind of ghetto, but it doesn't really cause any issues as far as the function goes, and it goes from this stock having quite a bit of movement back and forth inside the rear of the receiver to not having any at all. And other than that, for a folding stock, it has a little bit of movement, but it's rather sturdy and it works really well. And then I also want to kind of just go over the sling mounting options that I've had there. With the AC Unity stock, the only real QD mounting points that you have are on the stock itself. So here and here, and when it's folded, you can't actually sling it because the stock's going to want to sling or fly up and extend because of the way it mounts. So what I ended up doing is these little brackets here, I ended up tying a knot in a piece of 550 cord, running it through, pulling it out, installing the stock so the stock keeps the knot from pulling out any further, and then tying a second one so it won't go back in for whatever reason. I don't think it would anyways. And then of course the front sling here. And then of course no MP5 is complete without a suppressor. I've got a YHM R9 here. Per my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is one of, if not the best PCC style cans on the market. These don't look really good for handguns, but I don't like shooting handguns suppressed anyways, so that's why I went with this. And they're also incredibly rugged. These are actually rated for 308, so if you're just running on an MP5 or 9mm platform, you'll never have an issue. So let's go ahead, set up cameras on the range. Let's do a little bit of shooting with this thing, kind of let you guys see how it functions, and then wrap up the video from there. Alright, something else I forgot to mention while I was over there doing the intro part is this thing also does not run all hollow points. Kind of annoying. I don't exactly understand why. From a couple of the guys that own HKs that I've talked to, they said that those do. Don't know if they do or not. I haven't really seen them run a whole lot, but this does have issues with them, particularly gold dots and HSTs, which are my preferred hollow points. But while it does not run those, fear not, all hope is not lost, because it does run the Hornady critical duty and the critical defense rounds. It also runs the Winchester, whatever their Defender type bullet is. I have some over here. Let me grab some real quick. These guys right here. And I believe it has something to do with the overall profile of the bullet. The hollow point being as it's got the flat, jagged face on it and the lesser taper that the hollow points have on them. I think that they're catching because these don't actually have feed ramps. There's a little bit of free flow area whenever it's actually lobbing around into the chamber out of the magazine. So I think that is the problem that we're having. But hollow points with profiles more similar to what an FMJ would be, it doesn't have any issues. It also runs flat nose 147 is just fine. So I don't know what the entire deal is with that, but it does run these. These are 124 grain plus P pluses that I run through it. And then I also have some 135 grain Hornady critical duty that I run through it as well. I've put about 400 rounds of those through it just to make sure that the function and everything's okay. And I haven't had a single hiccup with those as well. So just keep that in mind whenever you're running these, is you will run into that problem with them as well. So I've got a piece of steel set up right here at about 7-ish yards. That's 15 there, so I'm about 8-9 yards maybe from it. So I'm gonna go ahead, run it, weapon on safe. So cool HK slap when you're running these. So I'm gonna do start with some 5-round cadences, then maybe some failure to stop drills. That's 115s. Before, it would not even remotely do this when running 115s. Now I haven't had a single issue with these. So these are Monarch, 115 grain Monarch. These are a little bit slow, but even with these, I'll still having the issues. So, as you can see there, the gun does run pretty good. I've got another type of ammo that I want to try here today and see if I can actually mimic the issue that I was having before with the round leaving the chamber faster than the locking piece could unlock and then not having enough gas to actually reliably run the system. I've got some frange rounds. They're 100, or they're I think they're 65 or 95 grain, and they're moving like 1,650 feet per second is what the box claims out of a handgun. So I'm gonna try and run those. Let's go ahead and load a magazine up, see if it'll function or not. All right, and these are 65 grain, not 95, so really, really lightweight. This weighs as much as basically some of the AP5-P stuff, so these are gonna be clipping along pretty good. And also, being as these are franges, I am not gonna be running this suppressed with these, but this will also magnify the effect because of the decreased back pressure. I want to see if I can mimic the problem I was having before, because my monkey brain says that if with an 80-degree locking piece, 115s were having a problem because of how fast they were. With a 90-degree locking piece, these 1,650 foot per second monsters will also have an issue, and I don't want to throw something through my suppressor. So I haven't even chambered one of these yet. So let's see if these things will even work. And right off the bat too, this magazine feels like nothing. It's light. You can definitely, even with the 115s, you can tell the difference, and it's pretty substantial if you throw some 147s in a magazine too. So chambers right out the gate. So we're gonna run these. I'm betting these are gonna be a bit louder than what your standard shits would be as well. So let's see if this will even function. Hopefully I don't have bullets breaking apart with the fluted chamber in this thing. Alright, so it's functioning. No recoil to it. So that's pretty cool. There's absolutely zero recoil to this thing. You see it's just barely farting out the shell casings compared to what the other one was doing as well. Alright, so it apparently will run those. And it's just barely kicking them out on the ground right there. The 115s are flying all the way down there into the cab of the side-by-side. And these are just a couple of feet off to my right. So it's definitely slowing the locking time down, and it feels about how the 115s did with the 80 degree as far as the recoil impulse goes. So it's definitely slowing that unlocking time down quite a bit, or it's not having quite as much gas to run it, I guess. You could definitely tell the difference in both the ejection as well as the felt recoil that you're feeling out of it. And the ironically, with ARs, especially like a 300 Blackout, the slower your projectile is, the less recoil that you're having, because in order to get those to be going subsonic, they're going to be reducing the amount of gas that's in there, amount of powder rather, which is going to decrease the gas. With MP5s, it's the exact opposite. The heavier the bullet that you've got, so a 147, the more recoil that you're going to feel, because the more time that bolt has to unlock, the more gas is actually being imparted to actuate the system, because of the locking time and everything for the way that these platforms are actually set up. So it's kind of the opposite, the way ARs work, but overall, I know that this thing would not have run those with the old locking piece. There's no way. But it's running them with the 90 degree, so I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, if you guys do have any questions about this thing, drop it down in the comment section below. I'll probably do some run and gun videos at some point with this as well, and then post those up as their lone ones, kind of similar to how I normally do with some PCC stuff. But other than that, that'll pretty much wrap it up for things here. If you guys have any questions, again, drop it down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I appreciate you guys watching.